Welcome to the Millennial Network Podcast. Now your host, Coach Danny Renee.
What's up, everyone? This is the Millennial Network Podcast, and today we have here Trey Johnson, who is a car salesman. And I brought Trey on because I want him to give you guys the game. He's a veteran in the industry. I wanted him to kind of answer like whatever questions you guys may have as far as like the market right now and whatnot. So, Coach Danny Renee, the Millennial Network Podcast. Trey, thanks for being here today. So, what got you into car sales?
Um, I actually had a couple friends from college that I played baseball with
Mm-hmm.
that got into the car business pretty early, and I think they kind of just did it on a whim. I don't know if they had any knowledge of, what kind of business it was. They kind of just did it, and down the line, I didn't get into it immediately after college, but I got to a certain point where I needed to make a change, and I just always knew in the back of my mind that I had a couple, buddies from college that were doing well in car sales, so I went into it.
Nice. And you said college. What school did you go to?
I went to Savannah State University.
Okay. So, Savannah State University, and you say your buddies were doing pretty well initially. Well, were they doing pretty well initially while you were in college?
Well, I can't. I mean, I knew that they were supporting themselves, so we were all in our 20s. A lot of people are trying to figure it out. A lot of people don't have their career quite set at that point. These guys have been pretty consistent. They had been doing it for a few years, so I just, I went into it.
Cool. And then you say you played baseball. Did you play for Savannah State?
Yeah, I actually went to Savannah State to play baseball. I
Mm-hmm.
played down there for 4 years. So, yeah, I played there. And then, like I said, a couple of my teammates, once they were done, they were a little older than I was. So once they were done with their career, they went right into the car business.
Gotcha. Now, let me kind of dig a little bit more into baseball because what I typically see is that you typically find a lot of people in sales and entrepreneurship is that they started with sports, and I don't know if it's because of like the discipline, the competitiveness, like you pushing yourself constantly, like when it comes to sports. So the fact that you play baseball, a lot of times people have the dream of becoming a professional baseball players. Just they don't decide to be like car salesmen. So did you get to
Right.
college and like that? Did you want to go pro? Did that dream change? Like, what was the decision where you're like, I'm done with baseball and I want to now do car sales?
Well, so as far as wanting to go pro, of course, we all want to,
Right.
everybody wants to do that. My experience was a little unique because I actually got drafted in 2001 by the Dodgers out of North Springs High School.
Mm.
Um, I won't bore the people with the mechanics of the baseball draft, but it's a little bit different than football and
What? We want to
basketball.
hear it. How many people are sharing it?
Okay, okay. Well, all right. So it may be a little bit different now because I graduated from high school in 2001. So, of course, this was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the way baseball works is you don't enter the draft in baseball like you do in football and basketball. You don't declare yourself for the draft. You're kind of just already in it. Because baseball has a minor league system that you have to work your way through before you make it to the show. That's what we call major league. Um, they like to draft you early. They would prefer to draft you out of high school. So because of
Wow.
that, they draft a lot of guys out of high school because, like I said, just 17 to 18, it's going to take you a few years to work your way through that minor league system. So they'll take guys in the later rounds if they look at you in your senior year and they say, okay, we feel like this guy has the potential, but he's not quite there yet. They will draft you out of high school and they call it draft and follow. They'll send you to a junior college. And the reason why they send you to a junior college is because you can leave a junior college at any point versus going to a 4-year school. You have to stay there to the end of your junior year or your 21st birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to a 4-year school and you develop to the player that they want you to be in 1 year, they can't touch you for another 2 years, as opposed to sending you to a junior college where after 1 year they can say, okay, this guy's ready. Boom, let's go ahead and send him to the minor leagues. So I got drafted in the 39th round because the Los Angeles Dodgers felt like I wasn't quite ready, but I was
Got it.
almost there.
Okay.
Um, I didn't end up going to a junior college. I went to Savannah State, which ended up being a 4-year school, which changed the dynamic. Um, between me and the Dodgers. They didn't have the rights on my name anymore. And like I said, I had to wait for at least 3 years.
Okay.
And then on the back end, the opportunity just didn't present itself anymore. So, that's how that worked out.
Man.
But as far as going into the car business, like I said, I didn't do it straight out of college. Um, I had some other things going on in my 20s. So I was 30 before I got into car business.
Okay.
So I had been out of college for a number of years before I actually moved into the car business.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So I want to kind of go back to the baseball real quick. So was it
Right.
basically you either had to develop in the minor league or develop in college? Was that kind of like the system then?
Well, well, yeah, because I mean, I still had the opportunity. I still could have gone to the next level after Savannah State. Like I said, it just didn't present itself, like that anymore. But I mean, it still was a good experience. And I think the reason why a lot of people who are in sales and in, entrepreneurship that are former athletes is because, being an athlete involves a lot of failure.
Mm-hmm.
It involves a lot of disappointment, because you're super competitive and you're not going to win all the time, and you get so wrapped up in it when you're on a team or you're involved in a sport. The letdown, is just like in business. We all know, sales is I wouldn't necessarily call car sales entrepreneurship, but it really is because in a sense you really kind of run your own business.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of letdown and disappointment in sales. So if you've already conditioned yourself, to know how to handle that and to know how to overcome that, it helps you out a lot in business and in sales. Really
Okay.
in car sales, because I
Exactly.
mean, the majority of the people who you come across, you don't sell them a car. And it's frustrating. I know you follow me on Facebook. I make a lot of jokes about it, but it's
Yeah.
frustrating. You sit down with somebody and you work with them for 2 or 3 hours, and they end up leaving, and it's like, damn, I don't, that time is gone. So, you
So
know,
what's like the numbers on that? Because it has to be like a ratio of like a certain amount of people that come in that you see you're going to close a certain percentage of them.
if you were to read national averages, it's going to be something around 20%. One
Okay.
out of every 5 people that you talk to, are going to buy a car. So basically, if you want to sell 20 cars a month, you need to get in front of 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think most of us that are good at this are a little stronger than that. I think that most of the better guys are going to be closer to 30 to 35%.
Okay. Got you. So you
That
at
you
least
that
know your
you that you'll
ratio.
sell that you'll sell, yeah, that you'll sell a car to. You'll sell about a third of them if you're really good.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just kind of floating through the business, you're tripping for all over 1 out of 5.
Got you. So how is
Yeah.
that ratio now compared to like the market? There's a lot less cars. I guess because of chip shortage and the manufacturers are I guess producing less cars or something like that. So how is the
Yeah.
market now, but during COVID versus like how it was prior to?
It's way different.
Mm-hmm.
I started selling cars in 2014. The mentality back then was a lot different. Car dealerships, some of these car dealerships will have 1,000 new cars on the ground. So you basically, back in those days, you had 10 or 15 or 20 cars for every buyer walking in the door. Versus now, you got 10 or 15 buyers for every car that you have. It's a lot
Mm-hmm.
different. Um, Most of the cars are selling for over MSRP, which is a big change from when I first got into business. When I first got into business, cars sold for far less than MSRP. If you had a car where the sticker on it was 35,000, it would be nothing for us to sell that car for 29 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So it's way different. And I spent way more time selling cars like that than I have in this environment where we're able to, um, sell the cars over sticker. And in a lot of instances, the used cars are selling for more than the new cars are. Um, It's crazy. I could have a car. I could have a brand new car here, and I can have the same car that's 2 years old with 25,000 miles, and they'll be selling for the same price.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So is it like
But
more? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, 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 no. Go ahead.
So I was gonna say with that ratio, is it to where like the dealers are making more money now with less cars than they were before with more cars? Like or is it about the same? Because you still got more cars, but lower than MSRP. Now you have less cars, but above MSRP.
Dealers are making more money now.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the older in the previous market before COVID, dealerships were still really profitable. They were just finding different ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now the majority of your cars are selling for some sort of profit, which is different because in a normal market, what goes on with a new car is that car is essentially sold at a loss on paper, and then the dealership gets reimbursed from the manufacturer. So they have CSI money. That's the customer service index. As long as your customer service is above average, you'll get a certain amount of money every month from the manufacturer. There'll be a kickback from every car that you sell, every new car that you sell. The manufacturer give you a kickback. They have rebates and all types of things like that. So in that type of market, the dealerships are still profitable. Now there's less of that. There's really none of that going on. There are no rebates or any of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the money is just being made on the car itself. But I would still say that right now they're a lot of dealerships are breaking records right now.
Nice. Okay, now I know you're a
And they're
car.
doing it and they're doing it on less cars.
Now I know you're a car salesman, so I got some questions. So, because you said before it was rebates, and now everything
Right,
like it's pretty much being sold at MSRP or above MSRP. So,
right,
as a consumer, we typically hear don't buy a new car, don't buy that car that year because as soon as you drive it off the lot, like it depreciates big time, right? I think it's like 30% of it
right,
or whatever, like depreciate. And then
right.
obviously you have used cars. So can you give me a little bit more like on the logic of why that happened and should someone buy used versus new versus outside of personal preference, but how should one make that decision?
Okay, now that's a good question. The conventional wisdom is that you save money on a used car.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Um, but so in car sales, what always makes us laugh is when a customer says what you just said. Hey man, as soon as I pull off the lot, this car is gonna drop 20%. There's some truth to that. Now here's the flip side to it. That only matters if you're about to run out and try to sell it right then.
Right?
I always ask them, are you going to try to sell the car when you pull off the lot? They say, well, no. Okay, well, what does it matter? Um, Buying new versus used. The thing about finances and all this kind of stuff, it's a lot of people giving advice out here. Everybody has a different philosophy. Every 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 school of thought doesn't fit everyone's situation.
Yeah.
So I always tell people buying new versus used all comes down to what you're trying to do. If I was a person that traded out of cars every 2 or 3 years, I know that I'm gonna want something different. I'm gonna get tired of driving it or whatever. If I was that type of person, I probably would buy more used cars
Okay.
than new because, of course, you do take less of a hit on a used car. You pay a lesser price for it. You're just not tying up as much money. And then again, that if you're talking Camrys, Kias, Hondas, that type of deal, I still think it's better to just buy a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to what I just said. I was saying that most people, if you're going to trade out every 2 or 3 years, you should buy a used car. If you're the person that's going to buy the car and drive it till the wheels fall off, I feel like a person should buy a new car.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in a normal market, you're going to be able to buy it at such a discount. Now, that's not going on now. But in a normal market, you're able to buy that car at a discount most of the time. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I put it to you like this. I tell people this all the time. Like, prior to me getting in the car business, I bought a few cars. I bought 5 or 6 cars probably. I always bought used cars. I've bought several cars since I've been in the car business. The only new car that I've ever bought is since I've been in the car business. Because I think there's a lot of value in buying a new car.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like I said, I think it really just comes down to your own personal situation, what you're trying to accomplish. It's not a set in stone right or wrong way to do it.
Gotcha. And you said there's a lot of value in a new car. Like, what value do you see, or what value should one see?
Well, for one, you're the only one that's ever driven it. You can control the maintenance. If you're going to be a person that gets the oil changes every 5,000 miles, you make sure that the dealership does it. You don't take it to your uncle to let them change the oil. You know what I'm saying? You're careful with the car. You know that you're not going to, well, hopefully you don't have any accidents, but you can assure yourself that your car is in a certain condition because you're the only one that's ever driven it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in a normal market, you get better rates on new cars than you do used. And I mean,
It's still the
sometimes,
same.
if yeah, I mean, if your credit is pretty good, it's not that much of a difference. But I mean, with interest, even if you can just save a half a point, that matters over a length of time. And in a normal market again, the manufacturers offer really good financing on new cars. These last few years where rates were really low, 0% was all over the place. I mean, these people were coming in with other approvals with other banks, point 0.9, 1.29, these crazy rates. That goes up if you buy a used car. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Now, of course, your dollar amount goes down. So again, that goes back to everybody doing what's best for them individually. But I would never tell somebody that buying a new car was just a bad idea, flat out. I would
Gotcha.
never say that. I buy a new car quick if it's the right deal.
It's funny you say that because I remember when I was looking for cars this year, especially, I was just like, what's the point of buying a used car? Like, if they're the same prices as old cars, it makes no sense to go to an old car route for myself, right? And then, like you said, you
Right,
do have the differences in interest rates depending on if you're going to finance it and for how long, because obviously interest rates went up. And then I think the lowest I seen was 2.49. That was the lowest, and that's
right.
with Navy Federal. Um,
And I mean
and
that's a good rate. I
yeah,
mean, can it be lower? Yeah, but I mean that's a good rate. That's a really
yeah,
good rate.
but compared to four plus, and
Hmm.
being the minimum, and not just based
Yeah,
on credit, but just based on like obviously different banks with interest rates that they have going out. But that's was like the difference between. It was just a significant difference, either 0.25% or more difference in buying used versus new.
right.
My printer just had it update or something. It's kind of weird. Um,
I need a new printer. My printer's not working.
yeah, it's literally updating. That's weird. But
Right.
anyways, yeah, but yeah, that's one of the differences that I saw in buying used versus new was the interest rates. But another thing, I don't hear people talk enough about. Well, actually, before I go there, it's funny you said also you're going to lose value right when you drive it off unless you're going to keep it a lot longer. And I think that
Right.
lot longer is you're probably looking at five, maybe 7 years is the range where you may kind of level out as far as the value of the car. But anyways, what was I about to say? Going back
Well,
to
hold on. Let me stop you there. So it's really more closer to. It's really more like 3 years.
even for a new
Depending.
one.
So yeah, it depends on how much you drive the car. So I mean, if you have somebody, and I mean, I've been in the business, I've seen this. People come in with cars that are 2 years old. They have 80,000 miles on them. I mean, that's going to be a unique situation. That person is going to have a lot of negative equity
Yeah,
because they drove the shit out of the car. You know what I'm saying? But if you're doing the normal, the metric that most people use is 15,000 miles a year, but in Atlanta it's more like 20,000. I think I drive 24,000 miles a year, but as long as you're doing that type of driving, just normal driving, as long as your interest rate is not crazy,
mm-hmm.
after about in 2 to 3 years, you should be about even in the car.
Yeah,
Because I mean, you do catch up with the value. And anything that you drive towards the end, as long as you've taken care of the car and maintained the car well, you're going to have some value in the car as long as you buy the right kind of car. A lot of times people don't buy the right kind of car.
Gotcha.
Sometimes they buy something that is going to depreciate heavily, but that's research that you can do prior to buying a car.
Now, what's the right type of
So
car?
I didn't, uh,
Wait, this printer is off the chain right now.
that's all right.
What's the right type of car?
I mean, okay, I don't have to be afraid to say this because I mean these
No.
people stopped making cars. These people stopped making cars. But I was at a Ford dealership. If you want a truck or an SUV, Ford is a great company. But Ford didn't make the best cars. That's why they stopped producing them. Chevy was the same way. Nothing against anybody who drove a Chevy, but those cars weren't considered the cars that last the longest for the least amount of money.
So
Um,
Corvette,
so
Camaro, no.
well, okay, Corvettes are going to be a little bit different because I mean that's $100,000 car, and the guy that has a Corvette usually is not driving it every day.
Yeah,
Um, Camaros, if you have one that's got a big motor in it, that's gonna hold some value. But I'm talking more like the cruises,
got you. Like
the
the everyday,
Malibus,
the
those
daily cars.
right, the everyday cars. And like I said, I'm not trying to say anything about anybody who drives those cars. I'm just saying that if you compare those cars to everything else on the market, those cars weren't as reliable and they didn't last as long. They cost you more money to maintain. Um, but I mean the usual suspects. Kia, Hyundai, they're good. They come with 100,000 mile warranty. And then you got Toyota, you
You already
got
know my
Honda, you
experience.
got Hey, so look, and we can be open about it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you had a recall, you had an issue with your Kia. They are machines. They
Yeah.
aren't perfect, and we do tell people that. I mean, sometimes the cars, even Toyotas. Sometimes Toyotas they have issues because it's just like everything else you buy in life. Nothing is 100%. Which is why, again, in the car business, a lot of times we preach warranty, warranty,
Yeah.
warranty. People don't like to hear that, but it's just like your car insurance. You don't need it until you need it. But
Did you say you preach it,
you're
meaning like extending the warranty or what?
yeah, extending the warranty.
Okay, can you give a little bit more about that? Because if we're talking about a new car is already going to come with a warranty. It's usually like, what, 3 years, 36 miles, bumper to bumper. I know most average cars is like 5 years or 60,000 miles, like powertrain.
Right,
And then
right. So
Kia goes up to 100, but explain more about that extended warranty and when one should consider it and why.
um, if you plan on keeping the car,
Mm-hmm.
there's some people, and I mean, your people know their buying cycle. You know how often you buy a car. I think I haven't known you for that long, but I think you're the kind of person that kind of keeps your car for a while. You don't come off as a person that's going to trade out every 2 or 3 years. Am I right or wrong about that?
No, you're right. But here's the thing with me, and it's funny because with my Kia that I just had, I didn't realize that it was coming up 5 years that I've had that car. I know last
Right,
year I was like entertaining buying a car or whatever, but I don't even think I realized I had it that long. It was just like a car that I enjoyed. It was, and the
right,
saying is sometimes we get attached to cars, but every car that I had to get rid of was never by choice. It was always something happening with the car where I was like, I'm done. Like, it's time to move on.
really,
Yeah, every car I had. But I did have a Ford before. But then also
right,
my cycles was, financial based on some of the information over years, and you hear from the old heads. Like, I remember my
right,
first car when I was in the military. I had bought what was it, a Dodge Neon. It's my very
hmm
first purchase, and I had it in Alaska. I moved it here. No, actually, I think
hmm
I just sold that car because I went over to Afghanistan, and then I had a Ford Taurus. That car was just trash.
right,
And then I think that's when I ended up getting a Kia. So yeah, mine was kind of
right.
like for sales or situations.
I got you. So, and your Kia had how many miles on it?
105. No, 106.
Okay,
105, 106.
106. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what happened to you is not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that series of Kia has changed a lot over the last few years. They do have some cars that had some engine issues though.
Mm-hmm.
That had the same engine issues you had.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a thing in some Kias. But they have come a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've been there for about 8 months or so. You don't see those same things from the newer cars, the 2020s and up. You don't really see that, but we do have customers that have, because you have probably was it a 17 or
15.
15? Okay, yeah. In those years, they had some issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. I mean, listen, I've been fortunate with my cars. I've never had, a car that had real bad mechanical issues, but if I did, it'd leave a bad taste in my mouth too. So I understand.
Exactly.
But back to what you said about extended warranties.
Mm-hmm.
It, probably when you bought that car, there was an option, because, like you said, the powertrain was going to take you out 5 years anyway. Now, it wouldn't take you 100,000 miles; only take you 5 years, 60. But you probably could have gotten a warranty that would have taken your powertrain coverage. You would have been covered basically.
Mm-hmm.
I can almost guarantee you had that option when you purchased the car,
Well,
to
no,
where
no.
what happened to
I
you
had
recently.
Kia, so mine went to 100,000. But I'm saying like most cars,
Oh, right, right,
most
right, right,
cars,
right.
that's the
Okay,
typical
so
average.
so right, and I'm not thinking about that. So like you were saying, so let's say you had a Nissan or a
Mm-hmm.
Toyota the same year, you would have you there would have been an option for you at the table when you were signing your contract
Mm-hmm.
to get your car covered, um, to where you would still been covered.
Gotcha. And then obviously that's
Yeah,
that's for a person that event like if they see themselves driving it. But I guess the financial side is like you're paying more money for this car up
right,
front, not knowing that if
right,
this car is even gonna last that long. So I guess there's that option
right.
at the end of those years on if you want to. You still have the option to extend it then, but it's just gonna cost a lot more money.
Right, and the thing about the advantage to doing it when you buy the car right then is you can work it into your financing. Where if you're financing the car for 5 or 6 years, you get to pay for that warranty over 5 or 6 years. If you go get a warranty on the back end, there's no guarantee that they'll even let you finance it. They might just tell you, "Hey, we got an extended warranty, but it's 2 grand." I mean, you got to pay the 2 grand now. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Gotcha. Now I get what you're saying.
Whereas over time, you just get it worked into your payment.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's even going back to like the new versus used conversation that we were having, because I know like in my situation,
Right,
I just purchased a Mazda and
right,
it was like the same warranty structure that we were mentioning. If I was going to get a brand new,
right.
which I was sold on a brand new, when I got to the dealership, I fell in love with the 2021, which only had 500,
Hmm.
500 miles on it. So I got a
Right.
car 500 miles, but I have a longer warranty. Now I was able to make it to the 100,000 powertrain, because that's why the 21 made sense over the 22 and eventually 23 is
Absolutely, because
because I have the warranty. So I
it
guess
probably was certified.
yes, I was about to say. So now, with you as a
Exactly. Yeah.
salesperson, explain like the certified used cars.
No, if you can find that car, that's a needle in the haystack. If you can find that car, that's always a better buy, for exactly what you just said. The car is essentially brand new. You got 500, you got 1,000 miles on it, so that's nothing. But now, because it's considered a used car, the dealership can certify it. So now you buy that car and it comes with the 100,000 mile powertrain coverage. That
Mm-hmm.
always makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That
Now,
always makes sense.
what about just certified used? Period. Because I know I was kind of lucky to find a car with so low mileage.
Yeah, certified used is always a good way to go.
Okay, so it's kind of like that
Yeah.
medium where you got the new and the used, but it's kind of like right in the middle, a little bit of both. You pretty much say.
Right. And I mean, because the thing about it is, most of the time, year to year, there haven't been many changes to the car.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, okay, well, I got the 20 and the 21, they didn't change anything on the car. You still got the technology, you still got the newest car,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a bit of a price break. But in your situation, you got 1,000 miles. Even if you pay the same price as a new one, you have the advantage because you get the 100,000 mile powertrain coverage.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So certified pre-owned is always a good way to go. I mean, because the manufacturer won't even allow you to certify cars if it has a bad Carfax. They do the 160 whatever point inspection on it, and they feel like the car has not been maintained well mechanically. They won't let you. Uh, they won't let you certify it. Banks give better rates on certified vehicles as opposed to used cars that aren't
Yeah.
certified. Um, the check that they do on a certified vehicle is more thorough than the one that they just than a regular used car inspection. So it's a lot of advantages to buying certified pre-owned cars.
Okay. So now, what about buying? Wait, because you sold what type of cars?
In my career,
Yeah.
oh man, I've worked at Toyota, I've worked at Lexus, I've worked at Ford, I worked at Nissan for a small bit, uh, Kia,
Mm-hmm.
and then I worked at a used car spot that sold luxury vehicles.
Okay. Okay.
So those are the brands that I've sold.
So now luxury versus just standard type vehicles. Like, what is really the difference? Is luxury really worth it?
Oh man, ooh, it's a touchy one.
Touchy one.
Yeah, it is a touchy one. All right, so um,
Yeah, think on that one.
I don't know. It's well, yeah, because this comes up a lot. This comes up a lot in the dealership. So luxury cars. It really just depends, man. I tell you what.
Is it
If you
worth the
buy you,
money?
if it depends on what it depends on what is worth to you. Okay.
Hmm.
Are they better cars? Are they fun to drive? Hell yeah, they are. When you get inside of a German car, you get inside of the you get inside of a German car, it's just way different. The
And who's
engineering
German?
is
What cars are
different.
German?
Mercedes, BMW,
Okay.
Audi, um, um, I mean, of course, you got the Bentleys. That car is British, but you know all these foreign cars. But
But you
the
hear
ones
that
that
those
most
three
people.
you just mentioned always having issues though, and they're
So that's
expensive
what
to
I'm getting.
repair. Okay.
So that's what I'm getting to. So most of the time when it comes to cars, people look at just sales price. All right, but the real deal with cars is what's called cost of ownership. So cost of ownership is everything,
Yeah.
but mainly it's the maintenance that goes into the car. Now, your warranty is a little bit different on those cars. You're covered on luxury cars, you're covered bumper to bumper, 4 years, 50,000 miles. So up until 50,000 miles, the entire car is covered, which is
Okay.
good. Um, the problem with those cars is once you get out of the 50,000 miles, a lot of times it's like at the manufacturer, they just press the button on the wall. You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, y'all, Danny is at 50,200 miles. Hit the button. And then all of a sudden shit just starts breaking on the cars.
Mm.
When you take them in to get serviced, these parts cost a lot of money.
Hmm.
They cost a lot of money. These German parts, the hours, you know, they'll tell you they have to take the front seat out to change the headlight. You know, it's all kind
Mm.
of crazy stuff with the cars. So the maintenance that goes into it, that's when you really start seeing the difference between the luxury cars. And for those of us that have driven them at some point in our lives, you may decide that it's just not worth it. You know what I'm saying? It's just not worth the headache because you're already paying more for the car.
Yeah.
So you're paying more for the extra engineering, you're paying more for the bells and whistles, you're paying more for the brand, you're paying for the logo. But then once you own the car, you're coming out the pocket a lot more on maintenance. And
Mm.
the cars are really fragile. You know what I'm saying?
So cost
They're
of
fragile.
ownership is the part
Cost of
that people should
ownership.
really look at when it comes to buying
Should
cars
re-
because that's how much you're
exactly.
gonna spend.
That's how much you're going to spend over the life of the car.
Okay.
Can you get a Mercedes that's going to last 150, 200, 250,000 miles? Yeah, you can do it. But how much money did you have to spend to get that Mercedes all the way to
Mm.
$250,000 versus driving the Kia or the Honda or the Toyota where okay, you had some issues along the way because I mean it's a machine just like everything else, but you spent far less to maintain your Kia over 10 years than you did your Mercedes. Your Mercedes drained you. especially if you get it done at the dealership.
Mm.
And the thing about those cars, the maintenance is so expensive on them that a lot of times people cut corners on getting the car fixed. They try to go to a place,
Okay.
that says that they specialize in Mercedes or whatever, and that's usually a bad idea. You usually end up costing yourself more by letting somebody that's not at the dealership work on the car. So you're really creating more problems for yourself.
Gotcha.
So it's a cycle, man. And like I said, I've been there and done that. I've had a couple luxury cars. When people come in my dealership now and they want to buy them, I'm like, oh man, I hope this person is ready.
So I think that segues into the conversation of leasing a vehicle then, because sometimes when it comes to luxury vehicles, it could potentially be better to lease because you just had, especially, and also if you're switching if you're switching cars, every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like leasing in this market. You got prices up, a lot of limited inventory, but leasing, like the benefits of leasing and also leasing in this market.
Um,
Does car salesman like lease, or is that like do you guys make less money on leases?
no, I mean, we don't mind either way. I
Okay.
mean, in a normal market, um, leasing gives you a cheaper payment, which is always easier for us to pitch to a customer. A lot of times, especially in this city, Atlanta is so big that a lot of people it's just not feasible for them to lease. Like I was telling you, I mean, I drive 25,000 miles a year. I could never lease a car. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It just depends on your own situation. But as far as luxury cars go, it's definitely better to lease those cars, in my opinion. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I say that is because if you're gonna lease it, you get the new one. You're gonna get the brand new car. You get all the new technology. You're gonna drive it for 2 or 3 years while it's under maintenance, while it's under warranty, and then you're gonna get out of it before the shit hits the fan. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Before it gets to a point where it turns into a money pit, you're gonna be done with it. You're gonna go turn it in. Now the disadvantage to leasing is you don't get anything on the back end of it.
Yeah.
So if you're paying $1,000 a month on a car that you own, after 3 or 4 years, you may have equity in that car. You may be able to get some of your money back. On a lease, you're not going to get any of that back. So if driving a car is worth that to you, if you say, okay, man, I'm going to spend 30 or 35 grand over the next 3 years to drive this car and I'm going to give it back. If that's worth it to you, then yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
I would definitely advise anyone that wanted to go the luxury route to lease unless you were buying a Lexus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you were going the Lexus route, I'd tell somebody probably just buy the car.
By
But if
just
you're
by the
going if
Lexus.
you're going German, yeah, if you're going German, I would advise somebody to lease over buying.
Okay. So, and then what about Acura? Like I guess Acura would be one of the ones maybe.
Acura's a good brand. It's funny because the first car I ever bought myself was an Acura. I used to love Acuras. The brand is not as they don't have as much notoriety now as they used to. But I think they are trying to make a comeback. They got a couple cars I've seen out there that look really good.
Gotcha.
I think that yeah, but I mean, the brand is definitely not what it was in the late '90s and early 2000s.
Okay. Yeah, because when I went and
Yeah,
looked at their cars, my neighbor he loves Acura. Acura, he swears by it, but it wasn't. It didn't give me that
yeah, then
exciting
yeah,
feeling.
it's kind of
I mean,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
mine like
I
how
mean,
I judge cars is a little different. Which everyone does. I think I just one of the turn offs to me was like the seats. I didn't like the seats. I thought the seat
yeah.
designs was like the worst. It could have been better.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, mechanically, I'm sure Acura is still as good as they
Right.
always were. I mean, because it is a Honda.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the quality of the car. I think I'm talking more about the representation and the style and they've kind of they're not what they used to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So can you
Yeah.
break going back to leases? Can you break down lease payments, because a lot of times you have the residual value,
Right.
you have the MSRP, you have the sales price, the month of payments. I don't know what else I'm missing, but can you kind of like break down and explain how somebody can set themselves up to make sure that they have a good deal on a lease? even in today's market?
Um, Leases are a little difficult. When you purchase a car, okay, let's say you're on a $40,000 car. You purchase that car and finance it. You're financing the whole 40,000, which
Yeah.
and whatever other fees come along with purchasing a $40,000 car. You're financing the whole thing, so you're taking the whole boat. The difference between a lease is you're only paying for the time that you drive the car. So let's say you have a car that's let's say it's $40,000. That's your MSRP or whatever. They have a calculation. The calculation is the residual that you just mentioned. So let's say you say, okay, I'm gonna drive this car. I'm gonna do a 3 year, 30,000 mile lease. I'm gonna do 10,000 miles a year. They'll say, okay, by our calculation, in 3 years at with 30,000 miles, this car might be worth,
Thirty
let's say
thousand.
20,
Oh,
30,000.
making it
Okay,
easier.
let's just throw a no, yeah, make it easy. So you would only be paying that $10,000 spread over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you stay within your mileage, as long as you stay within your mileage, that's all that you would be paying for on that car. And then at the end of the lease, they're telling you that you can purchase the car at that residual number.
Okay.
So you have that option at the end of the lease. And then I mean, that's pretty much it. That's why traditionally the lease payment is lower than the finance payment because, like I said, with the purchase, you're purchasing the whole car. With the lease, you're only paying for the time that you use it.
Got you. So in our example, you got that 10,000 that you're paying for plus interest and taxes. That's really what that is divided
Right.
over the 36 months.
Right. So on a lease, it's not called an interest rate; it's called a money factor, but it's the
Okay.
same thing.
Money factor. Got it.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
So it seems like even in this market, and I think that's one of the reasons why they say people shouldn't lease, is because I do know that there's dealerships that's like marking the lease up to like a full MSRP. There's not much of a sales price on it, if anything. And I don't think the money factor can change. Could be wrong.
So now I don't want to I want to say this first. I'm not in finance. I am knowledgeable of finance, but I'm not a finance manager. So I don't want to get too specific because I may be wrong about something. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
that to everybody out here. Um Leasing is kind of difficult right now because cars are selling for over MSRP.
Got it.
And a lot of dealerships are finding different ways to do it. Some of them are just putting some extra on top of the price. Some of them have some products that they're selling um, where they pretty much put them on the cars and they have a cost associated with that. That makes the leasing a little difficult right now because all of that stuff doesn't residualize the same way.
Okay.
So a lot of times now, depending on what kind of car you're trying to buy, the lease payment doesn't save you any money. Because like we were saying earlier, traditionally the reason why people lease is because you can drive the car for a lower payment than you could purchase it for. That's not always true in this market, and
Okay.
it's because of the prices that the cars are selling at.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes complete sense because I remember one of those salespeople, he gave me like the breakdown, and I was like, dude, this makes no sense. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah,
Not about to
yeah.
buy that. So you made the comment of like with leases, but I feel like with they're doing it with new cars and also some used car where now these dealerships they have these market adjustments and also these packages like these dealership packages that they're adding on to cars. So can you explain that, and do you believe that there's a way for people to get past those either market adjustments or dealer packages?
Okay, so the first the thing about dealer packages, this has always been around. Like I told you, I got in the car business in 2014. We used to call them addendums. So
Okay.
we would have the MSRP, and then there would be a small strip on the side. And I mean, dealerships had all kind of stuff. You got some dealerships that'll give you lifetime free oil changes, or some dealerships will come with uh, maybe they give a warranty away with every car that they sell. There are all kind of products. It's 100 different names for them, but it's basically like interior and exterior protection that comes along with the cars. Sometimes they would do wheel locks. Sometimes they would do window tint, uh, door edge strips. It's a lot of different ways. But even in 2014, we would have an addendum on our cars. Back then, it would be about $2,500.
But did you have to pay it
Um,
back then? Was it like requirement?
I mean, everything is always negotiable. It's always everything is always negotiable. But back in those days, I mean, most customers paid. I mean, if you ran into the dealership on the right day or whatever, they took it off, or if they were desperate for a deal. But for the most part, customers paid it because it was going on the car. If I
Mm-hmm.
charge you window tint and I charge you for wheel locks and I put them on the car, I have a cost associated with it, so I can't just give it away. You know what I'm saying?
But we
I
didn't tell
think
you to put it on there.
now that's true. You got a point on that, but like I said, back then cars were selling at a loss, so that
Gotcha.
was a way for dealerships to make up some profit.
Which I feel like is
I
still a
think
thing now. Is that they are. I don't even know if I would say selling at a loss, but still to make more money. Is they're still having these packages to be able to make more money as a dealer.
they they are. That's what it is. I mean, it's profit for the dealership.
And it's harder to
I
know.
mean,
It's harder to negotiate right now. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to pay that." All right, well, you don't want our car.
yeah, I mean, like I said in the very beginning, in the old days we had 20 buyers for every car. Now we got 20 buyers for every car.
So it's a lot less. It's a lot less. You're a lot less able to
I'm
negotiate
sorry, I
nowadays.
I said that wrong, but you know what I was
We,
saying. We
I
we
caught
we used to
on.
right. We used to have 20 cars for every buyer.
Yeah,
Now we got 20
reverse.
buyers for every car. Yeah,
So you have a
yeah,
lot less negotiating power nowadays.
yeah. I mean, because somebody's coming right behind you. And here's the thing, and I joke. I don't know if you ever caught my stuff where I'm joking about the realtors. I poke at my realtor friends because their job is just so much easier because they're the objections and the barriers that we have to come across in car sales, realtors don't have to go through it. But I had a guy yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy yesterday ranting on me about car dealerships, how we were thieves and how we were doing this and marking the prices up. So I immediately asked him. I said, "Hey man, listen, let me ask you a question. Have you bought or sold a house in the past 12 months? Have you sold a house in the last 12 months?" He said, "Yeah, I have." He bowled his chest up on me. I said, "I bet you sold your house over market, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah, I did." I said, "Okay, does that make you a dishonest person?" He said, "No." I said, "You were taking advantage of the current market, correct?" He said, "Yeah, I was." But here's the difference though, Trey. He said, "I don't have to buy this. I didn't have to buy the house. The buyer didn't have to buy my house." I said, "You don't have to buy my car. You don't have to. You don't
What
have
did
to
he
buy my
say?
car. It's all good." I mean, he kind of just looked back, couldn't say nothing because I had turned it back around on him. And I mean, I'm only the only point that I'm making is,
Sales 101, y'all.
the only point that I'm making is a lot of what goes on in the car business goes on in everything that you purchase.
Yeah.
But because car salesmen have gotten such a bad reputation over the last few decades, people frown upon what we do. The joke that we always tell in the dealership is, you can't go to Kroger and get a bag full of groceries. And then they ring it up and they say, "All right, Danny, your bill is $190." And then you say, "Well, hey, man, I got 130 for you right now. Take it or leave it. I got 130 cash money right now." They're going to look at you like you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you go to a restaurant and you look on the menu and you see that your dinner costs $39, you can't offer them $33 when they come back to the table. You just can't do it. You can't do it anywhere. But people feel like when they come in the car dealership, you can look at a car that's 30,000 and hey man, let's offer them 24,000. See what they say. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Why is
And
that?
then if we,
Why is that for?
uh,
Like, why do car dealers have such a bad rep?
I mean, there's some dishonest people out here, but that's not unique to car sales.
Well, I feel
Um,
like there's an like you said, even when it comes to realtors and just other industries, we accept what the pay is, but when it comes to car dealers, there's a reputation where people feel like they're gonna be, I don't know, mishandled, like taken advantage of. Like, why? Do you know why that is? Like, why was that
Oh,
created?
okay.
What's the
Oh, okay.
history?
No. All right. So this is a great question, actually. So there was a time in the car business. So okay, just again, just like everything else, uh, we live in an information age.
Mm-hmm.
A, a a knowledgeable customer that has done the adequate research is no a dishonest salesperson is no match for that person. If I'm sitting across from you now in 2022 and I start telling you things that aren't true, I run the risk of you being a person that sat on your computer 2 hours the night before. And you'll know immediately that I'm full of shit if I'm saying something that's not true. 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. 30 years ago, you didn't have the internet. You couldn't go to Kia.com. You couldn't go to Toyota.com. You couldn't go look up what the rebates were. You couldn't look
Okay.
at, you couldn't, if you were in the market for if you were in the market for a 1998 Telluride, you couldn't look and see what the other 10 dealerships were selling them for right now.
Got it.
You
Okay.
couldn't look. You couldn't look and see what they're selling for in Tennessee. You couldn't say, okay, well, you know what, man, Georgia. It seems like these prices in Georgia are high. I'll buy a plane ticket. Let me see what they cost in Texas. I'll fly to Texas and go buy one and drive it back. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So in those days, I'm sure that you probably had a lot of dishonest salespeople where
Mm.
people would come in, car was 30,000. You don't know, shit is 38,000. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that over the years, that has just conditioned people to feel a certain way about a car salesman. Whereas now you can defend yourself against that. You can just, it's so much information available now. These customers come in, you always know the ones you're talking to them. They come in, man, they know more about what's going on than we do. They come in, they say, hey, man, I know y'all got a rebate for this. I know Kia's doing 0.9% for 60 months. I want this, I want that. Because they can go on and they can find it out themselves. It's the same with pricing. Um, you can't, when a customer comes in and they think that a price is unfair, you have to consider the fact that you can look, whatever car in the car you're looking at, you can search that car within a 500-mile radius sitting right at my desk from your cell phone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can say, okay, Trey says he's the lowest price. Let me go ahead, let me check that. Give me 5 minutes, Trey. And you can see. So, I understand people not trusting. I guess if you think about it in the old days, I could see why people would be like that, but you have to use some common sense. It's just too much information available now to be
Yeah.
skeptical of a car sales. There's no reason to be skeptical. You could check everything before you come in.
Yeah. I think that's a solid answer. And we are back. So you mentioned prior to is that obviously offline on Facebook that people should come into the dealership ready to buy because they
Right.
be wasting y'all time. Now I get it as a salesperson, but how in the world is this going to be an expectation of people?
Oh man. All right. So I tell people this, all right. So I bought my first car in 2007. All
Mm-hmm.
right. I was not in the car business. This is 7 years prior to me being a car salesman. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about car sales. I didn't really understand finance. I didn't know much. I think I was 23 or 24. Um, but even back then, and I mean the internet was nowhere near as advanced as it is now back then. But I knew what kind of car. I pretty much knew what kind of car I wanted. I knew I wanted an Acura. I got online. I found the car. I found out where it was at. The most important thing, and this is what I always joke with people about. I had decided that I was ready to buy the car before I ever went to look at it. Now, I could have gotten there, not like the condition of the car. I could have driven it and not like the way it rolled. I could say, damn, man, this car rides rough. Oh, this steering wheel is tight. There's a million different reasons. I could have gotten there and not like the salesperson. Now, I'm not really like that. If I'm there to buy something, I'm not here for you, so I don't care what the salesperson does. But I know some people do. Maybe the salesperson pissed you off. But my point is, And it's not just cars, it's clothes, restaurants, doctor's office. I don't go until I'm ready to do the service. You know what I'm saying? If I'm going to the mall, if I walk into a store, I'm not going to a store until I'm ready to buy something. So I guess I try to make myself appreciate the fact that everybody's decision making is not like that. But it's frustrating when you're 100% commission,
Yeah.
and that's where it comes from. I think that if I was getting paid by the hour, or I was getting paid based on how many people I saw, or if I was being compensated somehow, I would look at things differently. But I don't. I only get paid when I sell stuff, so I have to look at it like that. It's just so I. I don't think you really. You don't. Do you have a traditional 9 to 5? I don't
Yeah.
think you do. Do you?
Yeah. But
Oh,
I
okay.
but I
Okay.
but
So
I also I've also worked 100% commission. And I've wasted
right,
hours on top of hours on top of hours of my life sitting down with people with their finances, and then looking at
right,
them, and then it's like saying like you have $0 saved. Your family is unprotected.
right,
You have no investment, no 401k. You are broke. No matter how much money you
right,
make, you are broke. But then after I sit
right.
down with you, you still need to think about it. And then they never get
Yeah,
back to me. And then granted, throughout the years, that's
yeah,
also sales strategy as far as following up and different things like that. But you're speaking like a salesperson, which I get. But that also
right,
goes back to understanding your numbers, because
right,
like you said, you're a certain way when it comes to
right.
making a decision. And that's why I asked a question too, is just why do car salesmen get that bad rep? And a lot of people just
Yeah,
don't trust car salesmen even still to this day. I guess the
yeah,
best thing you can do is one is understanding your numbers and being the best salesperson that you can, which is why I love Grant Cardone, because he talks a lot about car sales. But no,
yeah,
even with a 9 to 5 being in sales, you get frustrated because you still run into the no shows, the people wasting hours and hours on top of hours of your time. Because mine is still
yeah,
salary plus commission, right?
right,
Um, so I get it. But it was funny. Like obviously when I saw that, I was just like, okay,
yeah,
because like I think it took me about 2 months to know, well, one, to know for sure what I was going to do, because when my engine went out,
right,
I wasn't sure if I was just going to get fixed. Then I didn't know. But I think when it came to actual car
right,
sales, about a month or so going into different dealerships, I wouldn't say I was wasting people time. It was part of the which I get it. You got to go through your sales cycle. But different
right,
car salesmen, they were the ones that trying to bring me in to do this and that when I'm just trying to get straight questions to help me get to a decision. So I guess they were like, I don't want to invest
right.
any time in you if you don't want to sit down with me. So car salesman, you guys have your sales cycle where you got to go through all these questions and this and that, where the person probably just came
Yeah,
in for, if they had that one answer, they either walking out the door or they walking further to you to get to their decision. Because like you
right,
said, you knew, depending on how much money a person is paying on a car, whether, I don't know even
right,
know how many people go into a dealership these days for a $10,000 car, but 20, 40,
right,
50, 100, you're most, like when you look at it, I guess from a financial aspect, you got to think, how many hours do you work a month to be able to pay for that car? A lot of times
right,
you're working a week. I'm just guessing. I don't really know the numbers, but say for instance you're working a week to be able to pay for that car. Because your hours, however much your car payment is, you've worked that week to be able to pay for that car, right? So
right,
you're not just going in there to just make a rash decision. You have to do your research. You have to make sure that it's worth everything that you are. I know I wasn't expected to be in the car market, which I don't know the
right.
percentage, but I think a lot of people that go to buy cars outside of the 2 and 3 year people that want to switch and switch and switch. Most people that are
Hmm.
buying cars, they are in a situation where they have to buy. They totaled their vehicle from an accident, or the engine or something went out to where repair is too expensive. So at that point, you don't know what you want. I know me, I didn't know what I wanted. My first car when I went and started test driving was a Camaro, because the Corvettes wasn't there.
Hmm.
I was like, I want a Camaro. This
Right,
Camaro is nice. Realistically, do I
right.
really need a Camaro? I don't like the back seats. What's the point of having a back seat?
Yeah.
Nobody can fit back there.
There's no back. I
So
was about to say there's
all
no back seat in that car.
right, let's get to it. I was like, okay, cars. I want all these like different luxury vehicles, but I'm like, are these luxury vehicles even it? And then each luxury vehicle that I drove, like it was something in it that I didn't like. I couldn't find the perfect
Mm-hmm.
match. Either I'm paying more, like a lot more money for a luxury or whatever that I just felt like didn't have much value to it, or when I saw like
Right.
when you see certain cars on the internet, I don't know, well, obviously you're different. But when you see certain stuff on the internet, it
Yeah.
just don't look the same in person. Don't look the same in person.
Right.
It don't feel the same. So I had to go through different dealerships, and then also the disrespect. Like I remember I went to one dealership and the dude, he didn't even know my financial situation. Like I could afford it, like
Right.
any of those cars that I wanted, but he didn't know it, so he prejudged me. Because he prejudged
And
me,
that, yeah.
I'm not giving you my business. Y'all hiring somebody don't even know they're doing this. You're not getting my business. You turn me off from the car itself. And
Right.
then,
And that does happen. Now
mm-hmm,
that kind of stuff I get it. I mean, because that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make in this business. You don't know what a person's financial situation is. It's just like, people talk about it all the time. The people with the most money are the people who don't look like it. And that's true. And I mean, the difference between my job and a lot of other people's jobs, I heard you say that you've had a job where you sat down and looked at people's finances. I look at people's
no,
finances every
yeah,
day.
I will say, well,
And
that's
the
in my
people
job,
and
but
the
yeah.
people yeah, but the people who really have it do not look like it.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
that's
that's very
very
true.
that is very true, because like I said, a lot of people that look like that's making six figures plus have all this luxury everything, but they are broke. They are some people that are
Yeah,
broke. So I mean,
yeah,
you just never know. But and then like I said, I didn't know what I wanted because I didn't expect my engine to go out. So then I went from
right.
Camaro to looking at cars to everybody telling me about an SUV, and I'm like, I'm scared of the SUVs. I'm little. I want to be in a big, like sitting above. Like I don't know my depth of the
Yeah,
vehicle. But then moral of the story, I ended up getting an SUV. I didn't know I wanted one.
right.
After a
Unit right.
while, of test driving different cars, I was like, this is it. So I get what you're saying on the frustration on the sales side, but
Yeah.
also,
And I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we get customers all the time that, are saying what you're saying. But you can still tell that that person is in the market. You're not looking at that person the same way. So if a person comes in and says, "Hey,
mhm.
Trey," and they tell me up front, "Hey, listen, I need to buy a car like in the next 2 weeks or whatever the time
I ain't
frame
tell them
is."
that.
If you
I
say
said,
something,
I was like a couple
you,
months or so. I don't know. I ain't in a rush.
oh yeah, see, yeah, that's car salesmen hate that shit. I ain't even gonna
I
lie
mean, I
to
was
you.
in a rush,
But
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 I ain't
it,
want them to know
but
that.
here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, and me being realistic, you know what I'm saying? I said this under one of my posts. Man, it's part of the business, and I understand that. On Facebook, a lot of times I'm just having fun. I'm joking. Y'all know I'm being funny. But there's truth to what I'm saying. I am frustrated,
Yeah, no, I get it.
but it comes with the business. Like we said earlier, you don't sell 100% of the people you talk to. So I know that I'm not going to sell a car to every single person that I talk to. Everybody is not going to come in ready to buy. Everybody is not. In the 7 or 8 cars I bought in my life, I have never said, okay, I want one of these 3 cars, so let me go drive all of them and see which one I like the most. I've never done that. I've always looked online at a car, gone to the dealership, and bought that car. I bought a car this year, and it took me about 6 months to buy the car. And so what I did, and this is kind of it's what I explain to people. The car that I was buying, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know I wanted one until I got in it. I was out of town last year. I rode in one. So I
Hmm.
said, "Damn, man, this car is kind of cool." I didn't know anything about them. Once I decided that
Which car was it?
I don't want to say it out
No,
loud.
I want to know. What do you have
I
on?
bought a Tesla.
Okay.
So I didn't like I said, I didn't know anything about the cars. I had never looked at, even though they've been out for years, I had never looked into them. So I started looking on the internet, started doing my little research or whatever. Started checking prices. I looked around, I didn't look nationwide. I think I looked about 200 miles out. And I just started watching them every day. I would take a few minutes and I would look online. That gave me a pretty good idea of what they were selling for. So just by doing that, I knew what a high price was. I knew what a low price was. I knew one thing that I realized is that buying one that was 2 or 3 years old, and this goes back to what I was saying about the used cars. Buying one that was 2 or 3 years old with 30 or 40,000 miles, you're gonna pay the same price as you're gonna pay for a 21 that's pretty much got no miles. They're all selling for about they're all in the same price range. So I had instantly decided I can't do an 18 with 20 or 30,000 miles on it. I'm gonna pay too much for the car. So um once I realized that, I said, okay, well, I'm gonna abandon it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna buy a car. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna move on past it. But I still kept looking, and then I found the right deal and I bought it. But the point that I'm making and what I'm saying about people being ready to come to a dealership, I never reached out to a salesperson. I never went in to drive it. I never called in and said, hey man, what's the best deal you can do on this? I never did any of that. I never contacted a dealer until I had decided in my head that I was gonna go buy the car.
Mm-hmm.
And like I told you, it took me 6 months to make that decision.
Gotcha.
This wasn't something that I decided on a whim and went and did it because I'm a car salesman and I don't want to waste the car salesman time. I was very indecisive about the purchase.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between me and some of the people who I joke about on Facebook, I did not go and tie up a salesperson. I didn't involve a salesperson in my indecisiveness. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I did that with myself. I educated myself on the car totally. Oh, I did this. And I always tell people this. The easiest way to find out about a car, go to the website and build it. Even if you're going to buy a used one, going to the website and building one is going to give you an idea of what you're dealing with. That's the first thing I did. I went to Tesla.com, didn't have to call a salesperson. I went to Tesla.com and I built the car that I wanted.
Mm.
So that gave me a general idea. So now I know what the options are. I know what to look for in the used car market. I know what they sell for new. But like I said, I did all of that research on my own. And you don't have to be a car professional to do that. I mean, anybody who's done research on anything, I mean, you
I
done
get
people
it.
do research on the houses. Yeah, people do research. You do research in college. You did research in high school. I mean, it's all the same thing. It's
I
just
was just
fact
gonna say
finding.
research still ain't the same unless you in person. Because I was sold on the Toyota. I was sold on that RAV4. I was like, that's the car I'm getting. Put the deposit down.
Yeah,
But I think it was like
yeah,
right after I put the deposit down, I was still doing research because obviously I had to wait.
yeah,
And then I found out about
yeah,
Mazda because I was like, I still got to wait a month to
yeah.
get this car. I found out about Mazda and I was just
Right.
like, yo, I'm sold after seeing that. I knew nothing. Mazda never came up on any of my searches. I knew nothing about Mazda.
Right,
Nothing. But then
right.
after I did the research, I was like, "This is the car I want." I went in, drove it. It was everything that I needed. I thought out of all the cars I
That you
test
wanted.
drove,
Yeah,
it was everything that I needed and I wanted. And then
yeah,
it's funny because I was talking to my buddy and I was like, I don't know because I was like, they're so similar. Rav4, the Mazda, I don't know. And then he was like, go take it to the. He's like, where's the dealership? Go take it to the dealership and compare. I was like, I can't do that. You being petty. And then he was like, well, you want to see them next to each other, right? And I was like, yeah, good point. So it's funny. I had took the salesman with me and drove to the Toyota dealership. And literally parked the
ah,
car
hell
next.
no.
I parked the car next to one of the Rav4s, looking inside. Like, he was like, "Yo, go!" He's like, "I used to work here. My boss knows this person." So he was kind of
Ah,
scared. It was funny, but ultimately, I made my decision. And I have a car.
right.
So, anyways, I get it. It's like more of the story is like be more secure and knowing what you want. Doing your research as much as possible. Granted, most of the time your researchers could put you in a state of paralysis of analysis. I get that.
Yeah.
But and then
That definitely. Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
consideration
Definitely. I mean, I.
and then taking into consideration the salesperson time because one of the things that I learned in my 6 years of being in sales is that people are afraid of rejection and people are
Yeah.
afraid to reject. I don't know what it is, but people don't like to tell you no, and people don't like hearing the word no. It's like one of the biggest
Yeah.
fears, where it's one of the biggest fears that don't do any harm to you, but if anything, it helps you grow a lot more. So,
Yeah. I
anyway,
agree with that.
Trey, you got any like final thoughts or anything you want to add?
Well, no, hey, I'm on Facebook, Trey Johnson. I'm on Instagram. I don't get on there much, but T_Ray150. Anytime anybody has any questions about cars, or if you need some advice, I never mind giving it. You don't have to buy the car from me. It's cool. I got friends all over the business. So if you ever got a question or whatever, reach out to me. I'm always, willing to help folks out. And I appreciate you having me on. This was fun having this conversation out loud.
Thanks for being on, because I feel like you got a lot of pieces of this information everywhere. But I was like, let's get in, and add to the community, add to the millennials, because hey, we are the ones that are getting older with these families, and able to make
Yeah,
some of these right purchases. So again, thank you
yeah.
for being on the Millennial Network podcast. And everybody, remember, your network is your net worth. Trey just said he's available for questions, so make sure you reach out to him if you have any car sales questions. And also, yeah, I'll put your information in there if you are in the market to buy a car. You could definitely reach out to
Yeah,
Trey.
definitely. Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. Ed Boys Kia in Smyrna. My number's 404-808-3485.
There you go. Awesome. All right,
All
y'all.
right.
Y'all have a good one.
All right. Enjoy your Sunday.